So our topic today is file input output, as hopefully you can tell from the name of my class, which is file stuff. So today we are going to be trying to demonstrate the ability to read from and write to an external file from within our computer program, and demonstrate the ability to read from and write from that external file. So we have several reasons why we may want our programs saving to the hard drive. We may want to save the state of our program, save the state of our game, save information that the user has entered into it. So let's get right into it. So to write to a file, we're going to use the print writer class. And we'll get our little light bulb telling us to add an import for java.io, which stands for input output, print writer, and then we're going to get another error after this, which is unreported exception file not found. So hopefully you remember from last year what exceptions are things that might cause our program to crash. So what Java forces us to do when we use a class that might throw an exception, which means our program is about to crash, it makes us catch it and try and handle it so the program crashes nicely. It doesn't just give a blue screen of death or freeze the computer and run forever and force the computer to reboot. So those are the exceptions are things that might crash our program. So when we're dealing with file input and output, what are some things that might crash our program? Well, potentially when we create a file, we might run into the problem that the disk is full. When we're accessing a file, maybe the file is being used by another program. And stuff like that. So that's why there's an exception there. Now, to get around the exception, what we have to do is we have to say that we're going to try this. And we say try because it might break our program, and if it is going to throw an exception, in other words, something's going to happen that's going to break our program, we're going to catch the exception. And just in our catch, for right now, we're just going to say system.out.println something went wrong, and then system.out.println. You'll notice we have an object E exception, which will tell us what went wrong. So I'll go E dot get message, so that we can see what the message is that caused the crash in the first place. So now if we go and run our program, nothing pops up. I should put a system.out here after saying that it ran successfully, but we can test to see if that file actually was created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my C drive, and hopefully you did this to your projects on your H drive. I'm going to go to the file stuff directory. I'm going to look at the build. Oh, where is it? Oh, actually it's right here in my project / file stuff. You see we have a test text document. Now if we open that text document up, you notice it's empty right now because we haven't written anything into the file. We're going to change that. So at this point you might be asking, well, how do we write to that file? This is going to actually look very familiar to you. You notice that we have a print writer out. I'm going to go out. Oops, and I should do this in the try catch block. Out dot print line. And I'm going to rerun my file. I'm going to navigate back to where I was. I should have actually left that open. Open up the test. Didn't write because I think I forgot to close the stream. So out.close. So let's rerun that. Okay, program's run its course. Try and open up test again. Hello hard drive. So now we can actually write stuff out to our hard drive. Now what I can do here as well, in addition to just printing out text, I could actually write variables. Okay, run successfully. Let's take a look at that. There's my integer 10, and I can switch the integer to a double. Okay, and I can write all those types of variables, including a string, onto the hard drive. The other thing I can do is actually write a whole class on here. So let's create a new class. I'm going to create a cat class. You can create any class you'd like. And now I'm going to create our basic cat class. I'm going to say cat fluffy equals new cat. And I'm going to try and print out Fluffy to the hard drive. So let's see what happens. You notice filestuff.filestuff $cat at 197.4c FC4E. Remember, a class is actually just pointing to a series of variables and methods in the memory. So when we start writing complex objects like classes, they're not going to come out nicely in text format. So if you have Microsoft Word, you can also open that test document in Microsoft Word, leave it open when you run your program, and you should see something went wrong, the file is already in use as a message pop up, but I leave that as a challenge to you. So the next thing we want to do is actually, now that we've written to a file, is read from the file. So to do that, I'm going to set up another try catch block. And I could do it inside my other try catch block, but I'd rather do it in a separate try catch, just so that I know if something went wrong while I was reading or writing. Although the .get message would probably tip us off one way or another. So what we need to actually read from the file is buffered reader. And to pass in as a parameter to the buffered reader, we're going to pass in a new file reader, which we're going to try and open our text.txt file that we wrote in the first part of the program. Now I can add an import for the buffered reader, import for the file reader, fix the typo, and now I can actually start reading stuff in. So string.line in.readline, now go system.out.println. So what this is going to do is it's going to read one line one line of my file and then print that line back out to me. So let's see what that looks like. The first line of my file is hello hard drive, so it printed that back out to me. Now if I comment this out, and then go manually edit my file, and I say some random gibberish at the start, and run my file. So now I should see my random gibberish pop up when I read it. One thing I'm forgetting, it's always good practice. I'll put this back. The one thing I'm forgetting, it's always good practice when you open up a stream, which is a data stream to read or write. I should close it when I'm done. Oops. Okay. Now I'm going to eliminate Fluffy, even though everybody was very attached to Fluffy, and I'm going to switch my test back to an integer. After I read my first line, now I'm ready to actually read line 2. So I'm going to say line equals in dot read line. Let's run it. And then hello hard drive and the number 10, which is my integer that I printed out. Now the question is, how do I get, if I've read that from a file and I know that it's an integer and I want to use it as an integer, how do I actually put that back into an integer? Because if I said int read number, you'll notice that it gives me an error message. Okay, so it's actually suggesting to me that I changed read number to a string. So this is where you might want to think back to earlier this semester and last year, and you've done this several times already, where we said integer dot parseInt we're actually going to parse the string and try and convert it to an integer, and then we're going to print it out. So let's say read number. Now, no error is going to pop up over here, but remember, this could generate an error. It's good that it's in our try and catch block, because maybe the part that we're reading, we screwed up when we read our file. We're reading text in and we're trying to convert that to a number, so that could potentially crash our program. So let's see. So hello hard drive, the 10 still prints out just like before, but this time we're actually using it as an integer, not a string. Now I leave it as an exercise for you. You can take a look if you want to read back a double. There's a double dot parse double, and functions like that that you can try out. Now, a question you might ask is, when we wrote to the file, we wrote using print line. What would happen if we read, or if we outputted using just print, and we put a couple different integers on one line? Well, the answer is, when we did read line, we would get one big integer as opposed to the little integers. So if I said, I printed two ints, 10 and 20, so let's do that. you can see now I'm using the print method instead of print line, and I've printed 3 of them. Notice now instead of bringing me 3 different integers, which is bringing me the integer 10, it's bringing me 10,201. So this could be a problem. So now, if you read over the reading that I posted on the e-learning site, you'll know that there's an alternative to the buffered reader that we could do, which is a scanner. And we'll have to add an import for the scanner class. And then instead of in.readline, we could say in.next. Oops. Should be a next string in here, I think. Well, maybe not. So we'll just read the first line. And then for the integer, we'll go in.next int. Notice we don't have to convert it because it returns it back as an int. And you'll notice it actually didn't work out for me because the one thing I forgot was you have to use some sort of delimiter, and a delimiter is a way of separating different inputs. So if you have 10, 20, and 1 like I have, there's got to be a way to separate them. For example, we could set print commas in between. Okay, and then in our input, we would set the delimiter to be a comma, and actually just so Sorry, that should be use delimiter, not delimiter. The in.delimiter just returns which delimiter is currently being used to separate, and just so that our program doesn't mess up, this hello world doesn't mess it up. Let's get rid of hello world, and let's get rid of that first line. You notice now that we have 10 and 20 actually appearing properly because we have, there's the file. We have separated them with commas now, and we've used that delimiter. You can set anything to be a delimiter that you want in your file, just like I did over here where I said use delimiter, but when you're writing the file you have to make sure that you use that delimiter. There are questions at the end of that reading. Scroll down. After you've done it, it's got some stuff on reading to the end of the file as well. These are the 2 questions that you have to do.